Come on, this is such a good day to be in the Lord's house. Let's welcome those who are joining online. Thank you for being here with us on the live stream. We're working. Just thank you for your patience on the live stream. We are working at continuing to improve that, but we're so glad that at least you can have a way to see what is going on here. And if you want, hit the share button. I mean, I think that this is going to be good. Like, maybe people will want to see it. I don't know. If it's not, all your money back, guaranteed. Hey, we've been in a series called Faith for the Future. Faith for the Future. And has anybody been encouraged by this or received something from God in this series? Okay, a couple of you. All right, cool. Try to do better today. Faith for the Future. And today, what I want to talk to you about on this Vision Sunday, this is our once-a-year Sunday that we talk about what's coming up in the future for our church. And we pray and we get excited and we sow into it. And so I've called today, as we finish this series, Faith for the Future, the message is Faith for our future. Faith for our future. Where are we heading as a church? What is God doing in our midst, and what's he going to do in the future? If you're a guest today, thank you for joining us. And we are just honored to have you. This is a message that is kind of geared for our church. And I don't say that to say that we're not happy you're here. We're ecstatic that you're here. Thank you. Can we just say thank you to those who are joining us for the first time today? I just say that in case I say something that offends you, you will know it was geared for our church and not for you. But hopefully by the end of this message, you're like, hey, I want to be a part of this. And then you can be offended. That's fine. In the first few weeks of this series, we've been talking about, obviously, faith. And we've been concentrating on Hebrews chapter 11, which is the chapter that some call the Hall of Faith. It's like the most famous Bible heroes and their stories and all they accomplished through faith. I want to look at a couple of verses as we start off this morning. This is about Abraham, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 10. It says this, "For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God." How cool of a verse is that? Can you imagine a city that God was the architect of, that God made the blueprints for, that he meticulously designed? Abraham is who this verse is in reference to. It says he was looking forward to a city whose designer and builder is God. And then verse 16, Hebrews 11, verse 16, it says, "But as it is," and this is about all these people in Hebrews 11, "they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city." I don't know if you've ever heard the concept before that we started in a garden. Humanity began in a garden, and we're all collectively moving toward a city. Those of us who have decided to follow Jesus are going to live forever with Jesus in this place that he's designed. That's part of why we've had such a heart for cities as a church. Because God has, I believe, a special heart for the places where lots of people congregate. Not that he doesn't care about places outside of cities, but there's just this concentration of people inside major cities that God has a heart for. And so we're moving toward a city. And what I want you to know about both of these verses is that these people that are being talked about here were all looking forward to the future. Faith is future-oriented. And on this Vision Sunday, vision is also future-oriented. Faith and vision, in some ways, are synonymous. Because it takes vision to see things that aren't there yet, and then to put plans in place to reach that destination. You need faith for the future. You also need vision for the future. You can't have vision for the past. You can't have vision for the present so much. Your vision is what's coming in the future, and the same is true with faith. You can't have faith for the past. You can't have faith for even the present. Your faith is always about the future. What does Hebrews 11 say? It says that by faith, all these people did these things. And then it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. Our kids are having a great time up there. Yeah, they're excited. We have actually another kid space, but the heater is broken. So we adjusted over up here, but we love that we were still able to host the kids. So anyway, by faith, we peer into the future. And so today I want us to ask the question, what is in the future for Cross and Anchor Church? But before we get to the future, we have to start with the past. Some of you are new. Maybe a lot of you aren't familiar with our story, and I'm not going to go into all of it today. I just want to tell you a little bit about how this church began. It was in 2018 that my wife and I moved to Detroit with the dream and the vision of starting Cross and Anchor Church with no idea of what that would entail and no idea of what would be in front of us. And we did not know anyone. We moved here not knowing a soul in Detroit. And just a dream and a vision from God is all we had. Plus, we had no kids. So it was a little bit easier to navigate without children at the time. I remember talking to a friend of mine who had started a church in New York City, and their church was just a few years older than ours. And he told me about something someone had told him when he was moving to New York. And he said, the two hardest things you're ever going to do are start a church and have your first kid. And so he's like, why don't we just do them together? So we followed suit. We came here, we got pregnant. We started the church, and just 8 weeks into the church, we had our first kid. Her name's London, and now she's 3.5 years old. But we just fell in love with this city. And without knowing anybody, we just went to places and started trying to meet people and gather people together. We'd invite strangers over to our house to have dinner, and for some reason, they would say yes. And we would hang out with people and connect, and we were building community. There's a friend of mine who I hope was going to be here today. He couldn't make it, but he was actually somebody I just met in a coffee shop at Red Hook in West Village in Detroit. And he overheard a conversation I was having with somebody else. He was thinking about moving here, but wanted to know he would have a good church if he did. We connected, we stayed in touch. He ended up moving here, getting a job, and helping with the church, and he's still a part of the church today. These are just some of the stories of the people that came along during the way. And in March of 2019, we launched Cross and Anchor Church in this room, in Eightfold. And it was a day similar to today. It was packed. It was actually even more packed. This crate was up against this wall, so there was a little bit more room. And there was literally no room left in here. Some people went up, I think, onto that little top part, like Zacchaeus style. They're like, we're going to get in the couches up on the top. And in a few short years, and this is important for us to stop and to celebrate what God's done, in a few short years, we've seen him do incredible things. We've had hundreds and hundreds of people who have filled out Connect cards in the history of our church. And that doesn't even include all the visitors who have been here who haven't filled out Connect cards, because Lord knows some of you are not going to fill out a Connect card today, even though you are a visitor. We've seen hundreds of people, literally, who have raised their hands to commit their life to Jesus Christ. We've seen in 2020, we hosted, it was so silly. Why did we do this our first year as a church? We hosted a conference. And it was called Cross and Anchor Conference. And we had guest speakers and worship leaders come from all over the country. And it was really going to be awesome. And then COVID happened. And we had to pivot. And we ended up still doing the conference. We did it online. People watched from all over the country and even different parts of the world. And people gave their lives to Jesus watching that conference. Some people found our church through that conference. And this was just as a baby church. We literally stepped out in faith, not having any idea how we were really going to pay for this and how we were going to pull this off with our team. But God just, I think he loves those obedient steps of faith. So that was in 2020. And who knows that 2020 was a trial? I've heard it said that if you add 20 and 20 together, it equals 40. And 40 is the number in the Bible that's synonymous with trials. 2020 was a trial. And as you can expect, going through COVID, we lost the building that we were meeting in. And it was hard for us to gather together. Eventually, we started gathering together once a month. Then we started gathering together in the evenings. It was a full year before we got back to regular in-person services. And that was a really challenging thing, to keep people connected and together when we couldn't meet and gather together in person. And 2020 was a hard year. I did the math, and We as a church in our 3 years of existence have met in 7 different locations. Now, some people hear that and like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Some people are like, well, that's nothing. It just depends on your perspective. I know churches in large cities that move around from week to week, depending on what's available for them. But it does feel like a lot for us to have had 7 different places that we have called home. But at the beginning of 2022, we were so grateful because we circled back and we asked Eightfold if we could use this space again. And we didn't think that they would say yes, but they said, yes, you can have it. And you can have it all day on Sundays. And we would love to have you guys here, which meant that we had space for kids. It meant that we could do morning and evening stuff. And it meant that we could finally have a morning service for the first time since 2020. And so what you're seeing today is a result of just having morning services again. In the summer, we also had an evening service, which we really, really love to have. Then our rent went up here, and then we cut the evening service. But it's still been great because we have worship nights once a month, and God's moving. We have this morning service that's been growing. And it's been so great to see what God's done. We opened up a new kids space, then the heater broke, and we temporarily moved it back upstairs. But come back sometime when that space is open because it's awesome. We've been growing with families, which has been really cool. And God's been doing some really, really great things. So that's the past. What about the present? Well, today in Vision Sunday, I really want to put in front of you the correct kind of vision for where we're heading. And in order to do that, I think it's important to kind of clue you in on a few things that have been happening. This is really cool. 2022 as a church, as a small baby church, we've been able in outreach to give over $35,000 to different ministries and nonprofits and organizations, both locally, globally. I just wanted to highlight a few of them so you know who we partner with. Locally, Gleaners, to help those who are food insecure. Every time somebody writes their name on a Connect card, we actually give $5 to Gleaners. And actually, we do more than that, but we just try to get you to fill out a Connect card. And then Ellie's House, that I am so excited for what they're doing. They work with victims of human trafficking in one of the hardest neighborhoods in Detroit. We've gone out with them and done outreach with them. What they do is incredible. And then Send Relief, which is a relief organization we've partnered with that's helped domestically as there are crises like natural disasters that happen across the country and even in the world. And so these are people that we've partnered with this year. That's on a local level. Let's look at this. We've partnered with Church Planting, Hikari City Church, which is one of 2 churches in the Detroit metro area that's trying to reach Japanese-speaking people. We've donated to them as they launched this year. Last year, we donated to Santos Church, which is a church in southwest Detroit in a very predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and we sowed a huge gift into them as they began their church, and we're excited to continue partnering with them. Then, let's move forward. We're looking at global things as well. So we have a couple from our church, Austin and Jaslyn, who Austin would play the keys on the weekend, and he was so good, and he was better than that. And his wife Jaslyn, they actually, did they meet at Cross and Anchor or they get married here? Anyway, at some point they got married while they were attending the church. There's something in the air here. If you're looking for a spouse, this is the place to be. But we support them we're their largest supporters, and they are spreading the gospel in a part of the world that is very, very, very unreached. I'm going to skip tribes because we'll come back to that. We've partnered through High Point Church, which is a church that we're connected with in one of our church planting networks, to help provide relief for people who are in Ukraine. They have people on the ground in Ukraine who have been doing work there since everything's been happening there, as well as they have a whole church planting network. And then Key of Hope, which we just had the African Children's Choir here last week, and we're excited to continue partnering with and supporting their ministry in Durban, South Africa. Tribes is the very first church plant that we gave a significant financial seed to. In the end of, I think, our first year, maybe our second year, we sowed by faith into their ministry a $10,000 gift because we really believe in the heart of church planting and that there needs to be more churches. And they are in Western Australia, which Australia is one of the most secular nations in the world now. Their last census showed that 50% of the country claims no religious affiliation, which is it's just increasingly grown more and more secular. Tribes Church launched in the pandemic, and they have 200 to 300 people coming every Sunday. I got to go there and visit them and preach at their church, and it was amazing. Even though we sowed into them to help them start, they actually sowed into us to help us find a permanent location. And I asked Cody, who's their lead pastor, if he would just send a little greeting to us. So check this out. Now, these don't include things that we just do randomly as we can for people that we know that are hurting. If we get a phone call and somebody needs food, or if somebody in our church is going through an especially difficult time, or like God is making a difference through the giving of his people. And you are a part of that if you are sowing into this ministry. I'm just so thrilled for the future. Before we get into this last piece of my message today, I wanted to just play a short video of a story of somebody who started coming to our church recently and what God's done in their life, and maybe there'll be something in it that connects with you and helps us kind of clarify where we're heading in the future. So check this out.
The way I found Crossing Anchor was trying to apply for a job at the Gathering coffee shop from a recommendation of a friend. I went on a Saturday morning, they were closed. I went on a Sunday morning, they were closed. But I still wanted coffee, so I went to Milwaukee Coffee and ended up running into Pastor Josh when he came in after we had been talking about what church we went to in the beer store.
I love Sam, and I'm just so excited for more Sam's stories, more people finding community and connection here, and ultimately finding faith and finding Jesus here. That's what we want to see more and more of in the future. I said that it's important to have the right vision for the future because otherwise you kind of get messed up along the way. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and you have to there's an alarm going off or you have to emergency go to the bathroom? This happens when you're 40. Or your kids are screaming, or whatever the case is, and you wake up and you can barely see because your eyes are still blurry from sleep, and you're rubbing them, and maybe you're like me, you have glasses, and you're trying to, I don't have a nightstand, and I always just put my glasses on the ground, and so I'm I can't step on them, but I need to find them, and the other day I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was trying to navigate my way through our room, and I was running into stuff because I couldn't see where I was going. You need to have the correct vision for the future if you want to get to where you're going. Or you're going to stumble and you're going to fall and have accidents and you're going to get into trouble. It's so important that we have the correct vision for the future. And in 2023, we're going to talk about some stuff that's coming up, but this is the main thing you need to know. If you want to take away from this message one thing, it's just this. What's our vision for Cross and Anchor Church? We do have a vision statement, but if you wanted to sum it up, our vision is people. It's people. It's reaching people with the message of Jesus. It's helping people find community. It's serving people in our city. All of it boils down to people. I've got some news for you today. This might be a surprise. I told some of our team this earlier this week, but we have a building. Now, you might be surprised to hear that. You're like, well, I actually have known this for a while, and I hadn't let you in on it, but we have a building, and it's really, really beautiful. It does need some work. Look at this verse, 1 Corinthians 3:9. It says this, "For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building." We already have a building. It's the people in this room. God's not building buildings. God's building people. And as those people get built up, they form a habitation for him to dwell in. And that's what we're about. Our vision is not a building. Our vision is people. And if a building gets in the way of building people, then we don't want to have anything to do with it. I've seen lots of churches that have gotten hung up in building campaigns and have lost their focus for reaching and serving their city. And that is not going to be our story. We are building the church of Jesus, which is people. 1 Corinthians 3:16, it elaborates just even more. It says, "Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you?" So check it out. It's a portable church, y'all. Wherever you go, God goes. You carry his presence into your work. You carry his presence with your friends. You carry his presence into every sphere of life that you are a part of. If we start focusing on buildings and we don't get in our mind that we are the church, then we're going to get off. 2023 could be the best year ever if we would really believe this. Can you imagine if our church went from just gathering together on Sundays to reaching our city Monday through Sunday? Can you imagine the impact we could have if we got our eyes off of this, that, or the other thing and got them onto the mission, which is people, and God using you as a person to reach other people? I think that if we could do that, this city would change. There's enough people in this room to make a huge impact in Detroit. But we have to own the fact that we are the church, that we are God's building. So what does it look like to be the church? Well, it looks like serving our community, which we try to do, and you've seen different ways we've done it, and we're gonna have even larger outreach efforts in the next year to continue to be the hands and feet of Jesus in Detroit. It means that we go and we reach and we serve and love the people that we're in close proximity to. What if you quit viewing your job as something you have to go to get a paycheck, and you started viewing it as your mission field? These are the people that God's placed in my life for me to reach. This neighborhood that I live in is not on accident. But God's put these people around me to be a light. I think about Shane and Bethany, who moved here in faith to Detroit because they believed in what God was doing through this church, and they wanted to be a part of it with no guarantee of a job. And they moved right into the heart of the city. And I think about the neighbors that are surrounding them and how God is using them and wants to use them to reach that community. What if instead of one building, we had like 100 buildings and every house was a church building? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against buildings. I'm just saying that's not the vision. People are our vision. Let's think about how we can invite and include people. And one way that I think we can practically do this, I'm gonna give you a couple practical ways, but one way we can practically do this, there's this holiday coming up. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Christmas. It's a big deal. Like, people all over the world celebrate it. And every year at Christmas, people are open to checking out church because it's kind of part of our tradition as a country and as families and whatnot. And I've found that people that you invite on Christmas to church are much more willing to come than any other Sunday almost of the year. What if we took advantage of that and said, this is an open door God's given us to reach people who need the message and the hope of the gospel? And so for Christmas this year, we're expecting that we're gonna need more space. And so we're having 2 services on Christmas, not Christmas Day, but December 23rd, because Christmas Eve is like now a new holiday, it feels like. And so Christmas Day is on Sunday, and we're just gonna have December 23rd, our Christmas services, 5 and 7 p.m. And what I wanna challenge you to do is think of somebody to invite. Don't come alone. Think of somebody who needs hope on Christmas. Even if, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say, even if you pick someone up off the street and bring them here. Did you know 2 weeks ago, we had a guy who was standing on the corner who was going through some tough stuff in his life, and there was a family walking into church, and they just said, hey, why don't you come to church with us? And he came into the service, and God ministered to him. And there was another guy who's been struggling with addiction, and he came through these doors a couple of Sundays ago, and I have kind of a past relationship with him, and he's just been broken because he was recently kicked out of what place that he was staying because of what he's struggling with, and he came here because he knew he could find help here. We are a hospital for broken people. Who do you know that needs hope this holiday season? There's a QR code here because just to basically help us plan. Like, you don't have to register to come to Christmas, but it just will help us kind of have an idea of what to expect. And we're also making a Facebook event because I don't know why, but it helps get the word out. And we would love to have you join us for that. And then a lot of people have been asking me, hey, what's our Christmas outreach going to be this year? Because the past few years we've done kind of big Christmas outreaches. I'm all for that. And I'm going to tell you something we're going to do in just a moment. But along this theme of we are the church, what if instead of just thinking about giving to the church and then letting the church kind of do the Christmas outreach, what if we said, we are the Christmas outreach? And what if you took, I don't know how much it is that you have available, maybe it's $50, $100. What if you said, I am gonna look for a way to bless somebody in my life over this holiday season who needs it? And maybe it includes an invitation to church, or maybe it doesn't. It doesn't have to. It can just be, I love you, and I want to bless you. I'm an ambassador of Jesus. Like, I went to a coffee shop this morning, Milwaukee Cafe, and I've been trying to, get to know the barista better, and maybe one day he'll come and visit us here. But I left him, I felt led to leave him a generous tip this morning. And I want to be a light wherever I go. What if we had that mentality this holiday season? And if 100 of us said, hey, we're going to find people who are hurting, who need help, and we're going to help them. And we're actually, if you some of people are like, when they hear that, they're like, yes, I'll do it. And then some people are like, well, please just tell me what to do. Like, I need to be told what to do. Well, we are going to give you some ideas if you need them, and we're going to post them on social media. But I would also encourage you to just ask the Holy Spirit to lead you this week to someone who needs help. And I guarantee you, he will do it. You just have to open up your eyes or have him open up your eyes. But pray this week and ask God to lead you. And it might even be uncomfortable, but step into it in faith. And I can't wait to see and hear the stories of what God's going to do as a result. We also have one more Christmas outreach that I'll tell you about in a second. But in closing, a couple weeks ago, we did a photo shoot for our Christmas season because starting next week, we're starting a Christmas series in Advent, and it's going to run into Christmas. And then we have our Christmas services, and our creative director brought some people here and took photos and did all this stuff to get us ready for Christmas from a creative perspective. And when she first told me about it, to be honest, I was a little skeptical, but I didn't want to like put any water on the fire. So I was like, she does great stuff, so let's just see where this goes. But she was like, hey, my dad's going to build a manger. And I was like, okay. I'm trusting you. Like, I didn't want to stifle anything, so I'm like, that's great, awesome. Then they bring the manger. Then people start coming in last Sunday to do this photo shoot, and I see like really strange fabric and like this kind of hay type material, and I'm like, okay, like, but can I show you a couple of the pictures from this Christmas shoot that we did? Check this out. Can we turn these lights off? This is like, I'm not even exaggerating. It's literally the best thing. I think Emma's trying to get that last light off. These are like the best photos and the coolest design that we've ever done. Look at this. Look at this. Look at these models right here. Come on. This is like, this could be in a magazine, right? We can turn the lights back on. I know, off, on, off, on. Why am I showing you that? Emma had a vision for that shoot. I could not see that vision. I just had to trust that it was going to turn out great. And then each person who was a part of it also couldn't see that vision. They just brought their part, whatever it was, themselves or the fabric or the hay or the manger. What I think happens at church is we don't see the vision of what could be if we went all in. And we kind of like hear a pastor up front saying, hey, why don't you give? Why don't you serve? Why don't you do this? And we're like, I don't know. Sometimes we scoff at it, like, you want me to show up at what time? You want me to invite who? You want me to do this? What? Because we can't see the vision. If we would all be all in, you don't know what God could do with us and with this place. And I think, honestly, he's literally just waiting for your yes. That's it. If you would just say, yes, God, you can use me. Yes, I'm willing. I don't have to have the best skills or the most experience. I mean, I'm willing to bring that to the table as well. But whatever I got, God, I'm willing. I've heard it said that God doesn't use the able, he uses the available. Are you willing to be open to what God could do? And I do have a vision for the future of where our church is going. But I just want to be clear in saying that this vision is something that can be if we will buy in. And it really is honestly up to us if we step into what God has for us. Like, what if everyone in the church gave like you gave? What if everyone in the church served like you served? What if everyone in the church invited like you invited? Would the church be better or would it be worse? Like, what if we all had the mentality, I'm on mission. I'm called to be a part of this. I'm called to serve. I'm called to give. I'm called to invite. Because our future can be, and I believe it is, big and bright and bold. We can be a church that makes a massive impact in Detroit. We can be a church that is setting a tone creatively for what church can look like and reaching a different demographic than has been reached previously. We can be a church setting the pace for what it looks like to be a disciple of Jesus in 2023. We can be a church that does events, even large-scale events that reaches and blesses this city. We can be a church, and we kind of already are a church, that needs more than one service, that needs 2, 3, 4 services, and does need a building, not because our vision is a building, but because we need more space so that we can reach more people. We can be that church. But will we be? It's not up to Emily and I. It's up to you. God's done incredible things. I'll close with this. I'll invite the worship team back up. God's done incredible things this year. And I'd mentioned that we've given over $35,000 away this year. Since launch, Chris, we've given $100,000 away to church planting and outreach and efforts across the world. And we're going to continue to lead the way in generosity, because we're not a church that's just like asking you to be generous. Like, we're going to be generous. And so as a step of faith, as we end this year, I said that we've given away $35,000. As a step of faith, that number is just so far. And we're going to end the year. Okay, I'm getting distracted. I'm sorry. We're going to end the year feeling called to take a step of faith, because honestly, this is a step of faith for us to take. But we believe so much in what Ellie's House is doing, and the ministry that they have, and who they're helping, and the victims that they're rescuing and housing and helping rehabilitate from human trafficking, that we're going to give to them next week here at service a $10,000 check so that they can continue to move forward. And listen, we've been asking you guys about, filling out the vision survey so that we can kind of be on the lookout for a permanent location. And we are looking for a permanent location. I am excited because we actually do have, because of the generosity of God's people, we do have pre-approval for a loan to purchase a building. Like, that's an announcement that I thought was a little bit more exciting. And how that came about, we were trying to get into Chroma. Maybe I shouldn't have said their name because I'm getting ready to say some not great. But we were trying to get into Chroma, and it fell apart last minute. The lady we had been working with quit. The new people, for whatever reason, weren't on the same page about us being in there. We tried everything we could to get back in there. So far, nothing has materialized. But in the process, someone approached me and said, hey, I'd like to give a gift to the church, but it can't work for a lease. It can only work for a purchase. And it changed our mindset of how we were thinking about the future. And so we said, well, what if we looked to purchase a building? And so we started on this process, which led us to the pre-approval for a loan to be able to buy a church building. And I'm not going to tell you, I don't have an announcement about here's the building. We've been surveying you. We want to know what you have to say. But I just don't want us to get into the mindset of waiting for the building. I don't want us to get into the mindset of that's when we arrive. Honestly, that's the most dangerous thing we could do. We have to continue to capitalize on what's happening right now. And even if we get a building, it's probably going to take time to repair it and to get it ready. And we're going to need a bigger space probably between now and then, or we're going to have to add services. And that's a great thing. So here's my question to you as we close. It's my fourth close. Is, what are you going to do about it? We can't go to 2 services right now, not because we don't have the need, but because we don't have the team. Our team is not at a place where we can pull off 2 services. Would you be willing to say, here am I, Lord, send me? I'll step in, I'll help, I'll work with the kids, I'll greet people at the door, I'll come early. People got here at 7:30 this morning to set up this building. And it's probably gonna be even earlier if we have a second service. But don't think about the pain, think about the reward. Can you imagine who we could reach if we would all be all in? Our team is gonna give out a card right now. That's something that we want to end the year with. I mentioned this last week. If you missed last week, then listen now and think for the future. But as we end this year, we're doing a For the Future campaign. And we want to go into all that God has for us in the next year, which we want to give away $50,000 at least next year in outreach. That's our goal. We want to be able to get into that permanent space and fix it up and be ready. We want to be able to do more than we've ever done in every aspect, and it's going to require massive sacrifice on our part. So our team's going to hand out this card, and listen, I'm not twisting your arm. I'm not making you do anything. I'm asking you to ask God what he would tell you to give to be a part of this. Thanks. Give it up for Devin, everybody. For some of you, you're going to know the answer right away, and you can write it on here, and you can put it in the box on your way back. For some of us, we're going to maybe talk it over with our spouse, but I would encourage you not to delay, because I think the moment we delay, like every second we delay, it's like 1,000 pounds of doubt starts to come on top of us. And so my wife and I have pledged an amount that we want to give to Cross and Anchor Church this year. This is not something that I'm like asking you to do, but we're not doing. And it was sacrificial for us. It was a lot for us. It meant that we had to say no to some things that we were really excited about doing, not because we're so holy and we're so great, but because we believe this is better. I'm willing to give up a vacation because I know that this is better. I'm willing to give up whatever it is. A house. I'm willing to give up time because I know that this is better. So I want you to pray about this. And I want us to end this year so strong so that we can be so generous in this next year and we can walk into everything that God has for us. And this is not a box on here, but I want you to add this box in your mind, and you can add it on here if you want. The 4th box, because this is about finances, but the 4th box is your time. Would you be willing to serve at Cross and Anchor in 2023 so that we can grow and reach more people? Would you be willing to give not just of your treasure, but of your time and your talent? If that's you, then please write that on here. One of the boxes says, I'm going to commit to honoring God with my first fruits through tithing. Some of us, we haven't done that. That's the first step. Maybe you've never been a tither. This is like step 1. You're like, I'm going to do that in 2023. You can commit to that. I want to go above and beyond and give this amount. And I want to go above and beyond and give this amount either before the end of the year or at the end of the year. I want you guys to fill that out, pray about it. And then this is truly the last thing, I promise. We're recording an album, and it's happening this week. And this isn't a thing like we have a building, but it's actually you. It's like a literal album. And we went to Chicago earlier in this year with some of our worship team, and we wrote some songs alongside Vertical Worship. And this is one of the songs that we wrote. This is a really scaled back version of it with the setting this morning, but it fits perfectly to close this service out. Because what are we saying as we finish 2023? We're saying, here am I, Lord, send me. Send me to Detroit, send me to my neighborhood, send me to my friends, send me to my coworkers. God, use me to reach those around me and use me to reach this city. And I believe if we do that, we're gonna have a very, very bright future ahead of us. So Emma's gonna lead this song, and you can take a moment, fill out that card. As you learn the song, you can start to sing with her, and then once this is over, we'll dismiss you. Thanks so much for being here today.